The transport ship glided through the darkness of space toward Nexus Station. Inside the main cabin, Ambassador sat quietly, reviewing his notes one last time. He was a man in his mid-40s with kind eyes and a gentle smile that put others at ease. His hair was starting to gray at the temples, which only made him look more trustworthy. He wore simple diplomatic robes, nothing fancy or threatening. Across from him sat the military liaison. Despite his title, looked more like a tired office worker than a soldier. He had removed his jacket and rolled up his sleeves, tapping away at a data pad with a bored expression. Next to him, studied star charts with quiet focus. She was the tactical officer, though her small frame and round face made her look like she belonged in a library, not a warship. The cultural hummed softly while organizing files, her cheerful demeanor filling the cabin with warmth. "Remember," said softly, "we are guests here. First impressions matter." Looked up and grinned. "Don't worry, Ambassador. We'll smile and nod like proper herbivores." Raised an eyebrow but said nothing. The joke wasn't far from the truth. According to their intelligence, most galactic species expected humans to be weak and harmless. It was better to let them think that for now. The Nexus station came into view, and even the seasoned crew fell silent. The structure was enormous, a spinning wheel of metal and light that stretched for miles. Thousands of ships from hundreds of worlds docked at its ports. This was the heart of galactic civilization, and humanity was about to knock on its door. Their ship docked smoothly. The airlock hissed open and let his team into the station. The corridor beyond was massive, built to accommodate species of all sizes. The walls shimmered with some kind of energy field, and the air tasted strange, filtered and recycled 1,000 times. A delegation waited for them. The representative stood in the center, a being made entirely of blue crystal that refracted light in dazzling patterns. To the left floated an aquatic creature in a water-filled mobility sphere, its tentacles drifting lazily. On the right stood an insect-like being with 4 arms and compound eyes that glittered in the station's light. "Welcome, humans," the said. Its voice sounded like wind chimes. "I am Crystalline First. We greet you in peace." Bowed respectfully. "Thank you for receiving us. I am Ambassador and this is my team. We come in friendship and hope." This translator device crackled to life. "How small you are. Do all humans look like this?" "Most of us, yes," replied with his gentle smile. The clicked its mandibles together, a gesture their translation software labeled as amusement. "No armor plating, no natural weapons, no redundant organs. Your species must live on a very peaceful world." "Earth has its challenges," said quietly, "but we manage." "Come," said turning away, "the council awaits." They walked through corridors filled with aliens of every description. Some towered over them, others scuttled past on multiple legs. A few stopped to stare at the humans with curiosity or what might have been pity. Kept her smile bright and friendly, waving at a group of young aliens who giggled behind their guardians' legs. The council chamber was breathtaking. A circular room with a domed ceiling that displayed the galaxy itself, stars twinkling in real time. 12 seats arranged in a semicircle, each occupied by a different species. The humans were directed to a small platform in the center. Stepped forward and began his prepared speech. He spoke of humanity's desire for peace, their interest in trade and cultural exchange, their respect for the ancient civilizations of the galaxy. He was careful to emphasize their willingness to learn and their gratitude for this opportunity. The council members listened politely. Some even seemed genuinely interested, but standing at attention behind could read the subtle signs, the way some council members exchanged glances, the slight tilt of the ambassador's head that suggested condescension. They were being judged, and not favorably. When finished, the council deliberated. They didn't bother to hide their conversation from the humans, assuming the translation would be too complex or that humans wouldn't understand the implications. They seem harmless enough, one council member said. Weak gravity species, another added. There must be quite gentle. No natural defenses whatsoever. They would need protection in the outer sectors. Agreed, provisional membership seems appropriate. The crystalline first finally addressed them directly. Humanity, the Council has reached a decision. We welcome you to the galactic community with provisional membership status. This means you will have access to trade routes and diplomatic channels, but your territorial claims will be limited. We will also assign peacekeeping forces to protect your colonies in more dangerous regions. Maintained his calm expression. We are grateful for your generosity. You will be assigned sectors suitable for your capabilities, the representative added. Administrative worlds, cultural centers, peaceful trading hubs. We wouldn't want you in harm's way. Of course, said. When would you like us to begin integration? Immediately, replied. We have prepared quarters for your delegation. Your people may begin establishing embassies and trade offices. Welcome to the galaxy, little ones. The dismissal was clear. The humans bowed respectfully and were escorted out by a junior aide, a rabbit-like creature that bounced ahead of them nervously. Once they were safely in their assigned quarters, finally let out a long breath. Little ones, did that crystal really just call us little ones? Was already setting up their secure communication systems. They think we're prey species, herbivores that stumbled into space travel somehow. Laughed softly. Should we tell them about bears, or sharks, or that time we hunted mammoths to extinction? No, said firmly, but there was a glint in his eye. Let them think what they want. Underestimation is a gift. We smile, we build relationships, we learn everything we can about them. Grinned, and if someone decides to test the harmless herbivores. His gentle smile never wavered, but his voice took on a colder edge. Then they'll learn what evolution actually means, but not yet. For now, we are exactly what they think we are, grateful, peaceful, and eager to learn. He walked to the window and looked out at the massive station, at the hundreds of alien species going about their business, completely unaware of what humanity truly was. Predators didn't always announce themselves with fangs and claws. Sometimes they smiled and shook hands and waited for exactly the right moment. The galaxy thought it had welcomed harmless diplomats. The galaxy had no idea. The cargo ship Morning Star drifted through the outer rim on a routine delivery run. It was a joint operation between humans and one of the first collaborative missions since humanity joined the galactic community. Captain Minu commanded the human crew of 15, while Captain H managed his aquatic team in their specialized water-filled section of the ship. Minu was reviewing inventory logs when the alarm started screaming. Red lights flooded the bridge, and his second officer was already at the sensors before he could ask. Marauders, she said, her voice leveled despite the danger. 3 ships, fast approach. They'll be on us in 4 minutes. H's panicked voice crackled through the communicator. Here, we must seal the panic rooms immediately. Send distress signals. Council peacekeepers can arrive in 2 hours if we survive. 2 hours, Minu glanced at, who was already pulling up ship schematics on her console. Captain H, with respect, we don't have 2 hours. What choice do we have? They are brutal, they are raiders and killers, we must hide and pray. Minu thought about explaining, then decided against it. You do what you need to do, Captain. We'll handle things up here. The crew scrambled to their panic rooms, sealing themselves in reinforced chambers designed to withstand direct hits. Through the internal cameras, Minu watched them huddling together, their tentacles wrapped around each other in fear. He felt a pang of sympathy. They had no context for what was about to happen. All right, people, Minu said to his crew. We've got 3 minutes now. I want this ship dark and cold. Cut all non-essential power. Tactical team, you know the drill. Engineering, I need you to make some modifications to the cargo bay doors. His crew moved without panic, without hesitation. They had trained for this scenario 100 times back on Earth. Pirates were nothing new to humanity. The oceans had them. Space had them. The principle was the same. Killed the lights, plunging the ship into darkness. Emergency lights cast everything in a dim red glow. She vented heat from specific sections, creating cold spots that would confuse thermal sensors. The human crew pulled on low-light goggles and took positions throughout the ship. "They're hailing us," the communications officer reported. "Let them talk," Minyu said, watching the tactical display. The message was simple and brutal. Surrender or die. Hand over cargo and crew. The usual pirate demands, delivered with the confidence of predators who had never met real resistance. Minyu didn't respond. Instead, he watched as the ships closed in and latched onto the hull. Cutting torches began burning through the airlock, right on schedule. "Boarding in 30 seconds, reported. She had moved to a position near the airlock, pressed flat against the wall in the darkness. 2 other crew members flanked the opposite side. The airlock exploded inward and pirates poured through. They were big, reptilian creatures with thick scales and razor-sharp claws. They carried energy weapons and wore armor that made them look even more threatening. There were 12 of them, hissing and growling as they spread out into the ship. They expected screaming. They expected prey animals running in panic. They expected an easy raid. What they got was silence and darkness. The lead clicked on a flashlight, scanning the corridor. "Where are they? Find the crew, find the cargo." They split into groups, moving through the ship. What they didn't realize was that they weren't hunting anymore. They were being hunted. The first went down silently in a side corridor, dropped from a ceiling vent, wrapped her legs around its neck, and applied pressure to specific points she had memorized from their species database. The creature slumped unconscious before it could make a sound. She dragged it into a maintenance closet and zip-tied its claws together. 2 more pirates entered the cargo bay and found it empty. They were examining the containers when the floor beneath them opened up. They fell into the modified space below, where engineering crew had rigged a net trap. A quick dose of sedative gas and they were down. The leader was getting nervous. "Report, Teams 2 and 3, report." Silence answered him. Minyu watched from the bridge through the internal cameras. The pirates were scattered now, isolated in groups of 2 or 3. Perfect. Tactical teams begin Phase 2. The humans moved through the ship like shadows. They used the ventilation system, the maintenance tunnels, every path the pirates wouldn't expect. They knew every inch of the ship because they had studied it. They knew every blind spot because they had created them. A pair turned a corner and found themselves face to face with 3 humans. The pirates raised their weapons but hesitated. These humans weren't running. They weren't screaming. They were just standing there, watching. That moment of confusion cost them. The humans moved with coordinated precision. One swept the legs of the first pirate while another disarmed the second. The third human delivered precise strikes to nerve clusters. Both pirates were on the ground, unconscious, before they could fire a shot. The leader finally understood something was very wrong. "Retreat, back to the ships, back to..." He never finished. Minyu stepped out of the darkness behind him, holding a simple metal pipe. One calculated strike to the base of the skull, and the leader crumpled. 20 minutes after the boarding began, it was over. 12 pirates lay unconscious throughout the ship, carefully zip-tied and catalogued. Not a single shot had been fired by the humans. Not one alarm had been triggered on the pirate ships. Minyu opened a channel to the section. "Captain H, the situation is resolved. You can come out now." There was a long pause. "Resolved? What do you mean resolved?" "The pirates have been neutralized. We're loading them into their own cargo hold now. The Council peacekeepers can collect them when they arrive." H and his crew emerged from their panic rooms cautiously. They floated through the corridors in their mobility spheres. tentacles quivering with shock as they saw the unconscious being dragged past them. How? H couldn't seem to form a complete sentence. Marauders are. They're deadly. They've raided hundreds of ships. Who was helping tie up the last pirate looked up and smiled. They're bullies who got comfortable. They expected victims, not resistance. But you're so small, so fragile. Minyu finished his incident report and turned to the captain. Captain, can I tell you something about Earth? On our world, the most dangerous predators aren't always the biggest or the strongest. Sometimes they're the patient ones, the ones who plan, the ones who turn the environment into a weapon. We've been doing this for thousands of years. He gestured at the captured pirates. These raiders, they're amateurs compared to what we grew up with. When the council peacekeepers arrived 2 hours later, they found a quiet cargo ship, a traumatized crew, and 12 neatly packaged pirates with detailed documentation of their crimes. The human crew was calmly having lunch in the mess hall. The peacekeepers were confused, they were shocked, and somewhere in council headquarters, someone was starting to ask very uncomfortable questions about these harmless humans. The official report would call it luck and desperate circumstances, but H knew better. He had seen the humans move through that ship like they owned the darkness itself. He had seen them turn a cargo vessel into a hunting ground. As the morning star resumed its journey, H floated next to Minyu on the bridge. Your people are not what the galaxy thinks, are you? Minyu smiled, the same friendly smile the ambassador wore. We're exactly what we say we are, Captain. We're traders, explorers, and diplomats. He paused, then added quietly, we just happen to come from a world where everything tried to kill us for 4 billion years. You learn a few tricks when you grow up like that. The captain shuddered in his sphere, a gesture of deep unease. The galaxy had made a terrible mistake in its assessment of humanity. And the galaxy was about to find out just how terrible that mistake was. The Galactic Scientific Assembly Hall was packed with beings from every corner of known space. Scientists, researchers, and curious observers filled the curved seats that rose in tiers around the central presentation platform. Today's topic had drawn an unusual amount of attention, a comprehensive analysis of Earth and its dominant species. Stood at the center platform, calm and professional in her white research coat. She was young for such a prestigious presentation, barely in her 30s, but her credentials were flawless. Behind her, a massive holographic display waited to show her findings. The assembly director, an elderly named X, clicked his mandibles for attention. We welcome Doctor of Earth to present her findings. The assembly is curious about we have heard conflicting reports. Smiled politely. Thank you, Director. I understand there has been some confusion about Earth since the incident with the pirates. Today, I hope to clarify our planet's nature and explain how humans developed as a species. She activated the first hologram. Earth appeared, rotating slowly, blue and green and beautiful. Gasps and appreciative sounds rippled through the audience. It looked like a paradise world. At first glance, said, Earth appears to be a standard Class 7 garden world. Abundant water, diverse biomes, a stable moon for tidal regulation. The Council's initial classification seemed reasonable. She paused. However, that classification was incorrect. Earth is actually a Class 12. The room erupted in noise. A Class 12. That was barely short of a complete hellscape. X demanded silence. Impossible, a scientist declared. We have scanned your world. There are no volcanic superstorms, no radioactive zones, no. Let me explain, interrupted gently. She changed the hologram to show Earth's atmospheric composition. Our atmosphere is 21% oxygen. For most species in this room, breathing our air for an extended period would be toxic. Oxygen is highly corrosive. It causes rust, fire, and cellular damage. We breathe what you would consider a low-grade poison. A scientist raised a tentacle. But surely that is an adaptation. Many worlds have unusual atmospheres. True, agreed. Now let me show you our weather systems. The hologram shifted to show a hurricane from space, a massive spiral of destruction larger than some of the smaller council worlds. This is a standard tropical storm on Earth. Wind speeds exceed 200 kilometers per hour. The energy released by one hurricane equals thousands of your fusion reactors running for days. We have dozens of these per year. She cycled through more images: tornadoes that could tear apart buildings, blizzards that buried entire cities in frozen water, sandstorms that could strip flesh from bone. The assembly watched in growing horror. Our tectonic activity, continued, produces earthquakes and volcanic eruptions regularly. Our planet's crust is broken into plates that grind against each other constantly. Entire cities have been destroyed in minutes by the ground simply shaking. A young scientist from a peaceful core world spoke up nervously. How does anything survive there? Smiled: evolution. Constant, brutal, unforgiving evolution. Let me tell you about Earth's history. The hologram showed a timeline stretching back billions of years. Life on Earth has survived 5 major extinction events. Each one wiped out between 70 and 95% of all species. And yet, life came back stronger each time, more adapted, more resilient. She zoomed in on the timeline. Humans specifically evolved in a period of rapid climate change, ice ages alternating with warm periods. Our ancestors had to adapt to extreme cold, extreme heat, drought, flood, and predators that make your pirates look gentle. The next hologram showed a comparison between humans and other galactic species. Physically, we seem weak. No armor, no claws, no venom, but look closer. Our skeletal structure is reinforced for endurance. We have more sweat glands than any other species we've encountered, allowing us to cool ourselves during extended activity. We can run for days without stopping. Literally days. Erased a crystalline appendage. But you cannot run fast. Most prey species are swift. We don't need to be fast, explained. We practice persistence hunting. We track prey until it collapses from exhaustion. We can follow an animal for 20, 30, even 40 hours straight, never letting it rest. Eventually, it simply gives up and dies. We don't need to outrun our prey. We just need to outlast it. The room had gone very quiet. Continued, her voice steady. Our eyes face forward like all predators, giving us depth perception for tracking and striking. Our hands can grip and manipulate tools with extreme precision. Our brains are wired for pattern recognition and tactical thinking. We can simulate hundreds of scenarios in our minds before taking action. She pulled up another display. Our healing abilities exceed most galactic species. We can recover from injuries that would be fatal to others. Broken bones heal. Damaged organs regenerate to some degree. We have immune systems that constantly wage war against billions of microscopic invaders. We are, quite literally, always at war with our own environment. Anthropologist joined her on the platform. A friendly man with an easy smile that somehow made the assembly members more nervous rather than less. Let me add some cultural context, he said. Humans domesticated wolves. These were apex predators, pack hunters that could take down prey much larger than themselves. We didn't just coexist with them. We turned them into companions, into pets. We reshaped their evolution to serve us. He pulled up images of Earth's history. We invented weapons before we invented agriculture. Spears, bows, blades. We were creating tools to kill more efficiently while we were still living in caves. Our entire technological development has been shaped by conflict. We turned everything into weapons: rocks, sticks, fire, metal, atoms. A horrified murmur spread through the assembly. We survived ice ages, continued. We survived plagues that killed half our population. We survived when supervolcanoes blocked out the sun for years. And when we had conquered every other threat on our planet, we turned on each other. Thousands of years of tribal warfare taught us strategy, tactics, and the art of organized violence took over again. I want to be clear. Humans are not inherently violent or cruel, but we are survivors from a world that offered no mercy. Every instinct we have is designed for survival against impossible odds. The patience you see in our diplomats, that's a predator waiting for the right moment. The friendliness, that's pack behavior, bonding to create stronger hunting groups. The creativity, that's problem-solving developed in life-or-death situations. Director X stood, his compound eyes glittering. Are you saying that humanity is a threat to the galactic community? No, said firmly. I'm saying that humanity is exactly what we claim to be, diplomatic, peaceful, and eager for cooperation. But you should understand what you're dealing with. We chose peace. We chose diplomacy. Those are conscious decisions made by a species capable of incredible violence. That doesn't make us dangerous. It makes us trustworthy because we could be dangerous and choose not to be. Nodded, think of it this way. Every species in the galaxy evolved to fit their environment. You evolved for your worlds. We evolved for a world that was actively trying to kill us every single day for 4 billion years. We're not special. We're not superior. We're just adapted differently. The assembly sat in stunned silence. Someone in the back rows whispered, "They survived, they thrived on it." Another voice, trembling, added, "And they smile while they talk about it." Closed her presentation with a final image, a human family sitting together and laughing, ordinary and harmless looking. This is what we are. We're people who love, dream, create art, and tell stories. We're also the product of the most brutal evolutionary environment in this sector of space. Both things are true. Both things are important to remember. As the assembly dispersed, conversations buzzed with nervous energy. The council would need to reconvene. Human status would need to be reassessed. Protection protocols would need to be revised. The galaxy had invited what they thought were harmless herbivores to join them. Instead, they had invited survivors of a 4-billion-year war. The kind of survivors who had won that war so thoroughly they could afford to be gentle. In the back of the hall, Ambassador watched the presentation with quiet satisfaction, and had done exactly what was needed. The truth was out now. No more underestimation, no more dismissive protection. The galaxy finally understood what humanity was. Now they would see what humanity could do. The Empire had always prided itself on strategy and dominance. For 3,000 years, they had been the primary military force in the galactic community, their crystalline ships and precision tactics making them virtually unbeatable in conflict. When the Council began reassessing humanity's status following its presentation, the High Command decided a test was in order. If humans truly were survivors, they needed to understand their place. They would provide a lesson in reality. The target was 442b, a mining colony in disputed space that humans had recently established. It was small, barely 200 settlers, and far from any significant military support. The fleet arrived without warning, deployed troops, and claimed the colony under an obscure territorial statute. They expected protests, diplomatic complaints, and eventually, negotiation that would favor the. What they got was a message from Ambassador, requesting a single face-to-face meeting. The High Command found this amusing. One diplomat against their entire military leadership. They accepted immediately, curious to see how the human would beg for his colony back. The meeting was held on a neutral station, in a secure conference room designed to prevent any violence or deception. The High Command arrived in full ceremonial armor, 7 crystalline commanders whose combined experience spanned thousands of years of warfare. They took their seats and waited. Arrived alone. No guards, no weapons, no entourage. He carried only a simple data pad and wore his usual diplomatic robes. He smiled as he entered, that same gentle, friendly smile he always wore, and bowed respectfully. "Thank you for agreeing to meet with me," he said, taking his seat across from them. Crystalline First, the leader of the High Command, refracted light through his form in a gesture of superiority. "We are curious, human. Do you intend to contest our claim to 442b? The statute is clear. The territory is ours." "Oh, I'm not here to contest the statute," said pleasantly. He placed his data pad on the table. "I'm here to have a conversation about choices." Another commander leaned forward. "Choices? You have no choices. The colony is ours. You may negotiate for the safe return of your settlers, but the world remains property." Nodded thoughtfully. "I see. Well, before we get to that, I wanted to share something with you. You see, since we joined the galactic community, we've been very busy, learning, studying, making friends." He activated his data pad and a hologram appeared above the table. It was a map of space. "We've learned so much about your empire," continued. "Your military installations, for example. The map highlighted dozens of points. These are your primary bases. We have the exact coordinates, force deployments, and shield configurations for each one." The commanders shifted uneasily. How had humans obtained this information? Expanded the map. "These are your secondary bases, your supply lines, your communication relays." Each item appeared as he spoke, painting a complete picture of military infrastructure. "We've also mapped your patrol routes, your response times, and your standard tactical protocols." His crystalline form darkened with anger. "This is espionage. This is an act of war." "No," said calmly. "This is information gathering. We've been observing, studying, learning. You never asked us to stop and you never detected us doing it. That's not our fault." He changed the hologram to show biological data. "We've also spent considerable time understanding physiology. Fascinating, really. Your crystalline structure is incredibly durable, but it has specific resonance frequencies that, if exploited, could cause catastrophic structural failure. We've identified 17 different sonic weapons that would be particularly effective against your species." The room had gone deathly quiet. "Your ships," continued, pulling up schematics that made the commander's light patterns flicker with shock. "Beautifully designed, but your shield generators have a 3-second reset cycle after absorbing high-energy impacts, and your hull plating, while resistant to energy weapons, is vulnerable to kinetic projectiles above a certain velocity. We've calculated the exact specifications needed to penetrate your armor." Spoke, his voice tight with barely controlled rage. "You are threatening us." "No," said, and his smile never wavered. "I'm explaining what we know. There's a difference." He pulled up more data. "Your water recycling facilities on Prime, your food production centers, your power grid. We know where everything is. We know how it all works. We even know the security codes for your planetary defense network, though I admit we had to work quite hard for those." He leaned back in his chair, his expression remaining pleasant and open. "We've done the same analysis for every major species in the galactic community, by the way. It's what we do. We study potential threats. We plan for every scenario. We can't help it. It's how we survived on Earth." The High Command sat frozen. Their earlier confidence evaporated. "Now," said, his voice still gentle but carrying an edge that hadn't been there before, "let's talk about 442b. You took our colony to test us to see if we would fight or fold. I understand the impulse. You wanted to establish dominance, but here's what you need to understand." He stood up slowly, placing his hands on the table. "We don't want war. War is expensive, destructive, and wasteful. We prefer cooperation, trade, and mutual benefit. That's not weakness. That's strategy. Because we've calculated the cost of war with the Empire and we can afford it. Can you?" Tried to speak but continued. "If we wanted 442b back through force, we could deploy teams to 17 of your key installations simultaneously. We could cripple your supply lines within 48 hours. We could broadcast the resonance frequencies that would destabilize your ship hulls on every communication channel in your empire. We've already positioned assets in your space. You've never seen them because we're very good at not being seen." The data pad showed deployment patterns, strike plans, tactical scenarios. Each one was detailed, professional, and terrifyingly plausible. "But we won't do any of that," said, his smile returning to its full warmth. "Because we don't need to, we're offering you a choice. Return our colony, apologize for the misunderstanding, and we continue being friends and trading partners. Or keep the colony and we'll be forced to reassess our relationship with the Empire. We won't attack you, we'll just disengage. No more trade, no more cooperation, no more sharing our innovations with your scientists." He sat back down. "And then, every other species in the galaxy will see that the mighty Empire needed to bully a small human colony to feel powerful. They'll see that you're afraid of us. And perception, as I'm sure you know, is everything in galactic politics." The silence in the room was absolute. The 7 commanders of the High Command, veterans of countless campaigns, sat paralyzed by the realization of what they faced. Not a threat, not a bluff, just a clear, cold presentation of reality from a species that had spent 4 billion years learning to survive against impossible odds. Finally spoke, his voice subdued. "You would truly not attack us?" "We would prefer not to," said honestly. "Violence is a last resort, but make no mistake, we've prepared for it. We've prepared for every possibility because that's what kept us alive on Earth. Hope for the best, plan for the worst. It's not personal, it's just how we think." He stood and bowed respectfully. "The choice is yours, Crystalline First. War or peace, dominance or cooperation. We're comfortable with either outcome. Are you?" 3 hours later, they issued a formal apology for the administrative error regarding 442B. Their forces, and even offered reparations for the disruption. The High Command released a statement praising human diplomatic skills and expressing hope for continued friendship. When returned to Nexus Station, was waiting with a grin. "Did you really map all their bases?" "Every single one," confirmed. "Took us 2 months and some very clever surveillance drones." "And the attack plans?" "Completely real. We hoped we'd never need them, but we prepared them anyway." He looked out at the station, at the ships from 100 worlds docked peacefully. "That's the difference between us and them. They plan for victory. We plan for survival. It makes us more thorough." News of the sudden reversal spread through the galactic community like wildfire. The species that had intimidated others had backed down from a single diplomatic meeting with a human. The message was clear. Humanity didn't fight to win battles. They prepared so thoroughly that battles never happened. Predators didn't always bare their teeth. Sometimes they just smiled and explained, very carefully, why fighting them would be the worst decision you ever made. The galaxy was learning fast. 6 months had passed since humanity's first contact with the galactic community. 6 months since the Council had dismissed them as harmless prey species. 6 months since everything had changed. The Council chamber was fuller than it had been in decades. Every major species had sent their highest-ranking representatives. The crystalline sat in subdued silence, their usual arrogance replaced with careful respect. The aquatic floated in their spheres, tentacles still quivering when they looked at the human delegation. Even the, usually dismissive of younger species, watched the humans with wary attention. Ambassador stood at the center platform with his team arrayed behind him, still looking more like an accountant than a military liaison, quiet and observant as always, maintaining her cheerful demeanor despite the tension in the room. Captain Minu and Second Officer, representing humanity's civilian crews, and the scientists who had revealed Earth's true nature. They looked so ordinary, so harmless. That was what made them terrifying. Crystalline first rose to speak. The leader who had once called humans little ones now chose his words with extreme care. "We convene today to address humanity's status within the galactic community. Recent events have made it clear that our initial assessment was incomplete." A wave of nervous chittering and clicking rippled through the assembled delegates. "The Council proposes," continued, a new classification for humanity, not as prey species, not as herbivore descendants, but as apex diplomatic predators. Raised an eyebrow. That's quite a title. It is an accurate one, spoke Elder, who had personally witnessed the pirate incident on the Morning Star. You possess the capability for extreme violence but choose peaceful solutions. You prepare for war while working for peace. You are predators who have evolved beyond predation. This is unprecedented in galactic history. A senator clicked forward. The Council offers humanity full membership with no restrictions or limitations. All trade routes, all diplomatic channels, all territory rights that other full members enjoy. Furthermore, added, and could hear the difficulty in his voice, we request that humanity consider joining the Council's peacekeeping forces. Your tactical abilities, your preparation, your understanding of conflict. The galaxy needs these skills, not for conquest but for protection. Glanced at his team, gave a small nod. This was what they had been working toward, but it needed to be handled carefully. Before we accept, said, we need to be clear about what you're asking for. You want us to train your peacekeepers, share our tactical knowledge, help you understand how species think and fight. Yes, said simply. Then you need to understand what you're inviting in, stepped forward, his casual demeanor falling away to reveal something harder underneath. Human military philosophy isn't about winning battles. It's about making sure no one wants to fight you in the first place. We call it deterrence through overwhelming preparation. He activated a hologram showing various conflict scenarios. We don't fight fair. Fair fights are for sports. In real combat, we fight to end the threat so completely that it never rises again. We target infrastructure, leadership, supply lines, and morale. We wage psychological warfare alongside physical warfare. We make conflict so costly that surrender becomes the logical choice. A nervous murmur spread through the chamber. Spoke next, her quiet voice somehow carrying to every corner of the room. This isn't cruelty, it's efficiency. The fastest way to save lives is to end conflicts before they fully begin. Quick, decisive action with overwhelming force means fewer casualties on both sides. It's mathematics, not malice. Added her perspective. We've spent 6 months observing galactic conflicts. Your peacekeepers are brave and well-meaning, but they're reactive. They respond to threats. We need to teach them to prevent threats, to see patterns, predict escalation, and intervene before violence becomes inevitable. Stepped forward with her scientific calm. We're also offering medical knowledge. Human medicine developed in an environment of constant injury and disease. Our surgical techniques, our understanding of trauma care, our regenerative therapies, these can benefit every species here. We want to share that. Smiled warmly. And culturally, we want to learn from you as much as you learn from us. Humans are curious. We collect stories, art, music, philosophy. We want to understand what makes each species unique. That's not a threat. It's genuine interest. The council members exchanged glances, having quiet conversations through their various communication methods. Finally, spoke again. The council accepts your conditions. We understand what we are inviting into our community. We understand the risks and the benefits. He paused, his crystalline form refracting the chamber's light in complex patterns. We also understand that you are offering us something precious, the choice to work with you rather than against you. Nodded slowly. Then humanity accepts full membership in the galactic community. We accept the responsibility of joining the peacekeeping forces, and we accept the trust you are placing in us. He looked around the chamber, making eye contact with as many delegates as possible. But I want to make something very clear. Yes, we are survivors of a, yes, we are capable of violence that might shock you. Yes, we have prepared contingencies for threats you haven't even imagined yet. But those capabilities don't define us. Our choices define us. Spoke up, her cheerful voice a sharp contrast to the serious mood. We choose cooperation over conquest. We choose understanding over fear. We choose to build rather than destroy. These aren't weaknesses. These are the hardest choices a species can make, especially one that evolved the way we did. Captain Minu added, every human child learns two fundamental lessons. First, violence is easy. Any fool can hurt someone weaker. Second, peace is hard. It takes intelligence, patience, and strength to solve problems without fighting. We value the hard choice. We value peace. The council voted. The result was unanimous. Humanity was granted full membership status. The chamber erupted in a mixture of applause, clicks, chimes, and various other sounds of approval. As the formal proceedings concluded, delegates approached the human team, some with congratulations, others with questions, and a few with visible nervousness. The galaxy was adjusting to its new reality. Later stood on the observation deck of Nexus Station, watching ships from hundreds of worlds move in peaceful traffic patterns. The station's vast windows showed a slice of the galaxy, stars twinkling in the eternal darkness. Joined him, carrying 2 cups of coffee from the human section. Do you think they really understand what we are? Some do, said, accepting the coffee gratefully. The smart ones figured it out fast. The others will learn over time. And the ones who might test us smiled, they'll learn fastest of all. Approached from the other direction, grinning. Just got word from Earth. They're sending more diplomatic teams, more scientists, more cultural exchange officers. Humanity is officially going galactic. Good, said. The more they know about us, the less they'll fear us. And the less they fear us, the more we can actually help them. Below them, a human ship docked alongside a cruiser. Through the windows, they could see humans and working together on some joint project, the former enemies now colleagues. It had happened faster than anyone expected, but fear was a powerful motivator for cooperation. Join the group, data pad in hand as always. I've been analyzing the galactic species we've met. Do you know what they all have in common? What? Asked, appearing from wherever she had been exploring. They evolved on worlds that were relatively stable, predictable weather, steady food supplies, few existential threats. They developed intelligence for social organization and resource management, but they never needed to develop the paranoid, preparation-obsessed survival mindset that we did. Nodded thoughtfully. That's why they seem so trusting, so willing to believe in the best-case scenario. They never lived on a world where the best-case scenario was just another way to die. Is that a bad thing? Minu asked, joining the growing group on the observation deck. No, said firmly. It's beautiful. It means the galaxy, for all its conflicts, is fundamentally more peaceful than Earth ever was. They fight over territory and resources, but they don't have our deep-seated survival instincts. They don't see threats everywhere because they didn't need to. Leaned against the window. So we become their threat detectors. We're the paranoid species who checks every shadow, plans every contingency, and prepares for disasters they can't imagine. And in doing so, we keep them safe. It's almost poetic, said quietly. The most dangerous species in the galaxy dedicating itself to protecting the innocent ones. Raised his coffee cup. To humanity, may we always choose to be guardians rather than conquerors. The others raised their cups in agreement. Below them, the galaxy continued its eternal dance, millions of beings from thousands of worlds living, working, and dreaming together. And now, watching over them from the shadows, were the survivors of Earth, apex predators who had chosen diplomacy, warriors who preferred peace, and dangerous beings who dedicated their considerable abilities to ensuring others could remain innocent. The galaxy had realized the truth about humans. They were predators, yes, but they were predators who had evolved beyond predation, who had climbed to the top of the food chain and then reached down to help others up. They were the most dangerous thing the galaxy had ever encountered. And that was precisely what made them the galaxy's best hope for lasting peace. In the darkness beyond the station, Earth hung like a blue marble, that had created a species capable of both terrible violence and transcendent compassion. The planet that had tried so hard to kill its children had instead forged them into something the galaxy desperately needed. Protectors, teachers, friends. And yes, when absolutely necessary, warriors. But always, always their choice.